Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life is Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Coleman. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites throughout communities in the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and Easthampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. Today's episode will be talking about the Trinity Lutheran Church located in Easthampton, Massachusetts. So tell us about the present church.
The present church is fairly easy to find because it's a very prominent location within Easthampton. And especially when you're leaving Easthampton, going up the mountain, you can see this church. It's right beyond the Easthampton Historical Society too. So that little location is a lot of history. So today we're going to talk about, the present church, but we're going to also talk about where it was beforehand. It was about 150 feet away, right? And then we'll talk about another Lutheran church within Easthampton, because at one time there were two. And then we're going to talk about all these names that these churches have and what they could mean. So, this Trinity Lutheran Church, it looks to be made out of granite. It's fairly small, but it's a nice looking church in the Gothic Revival style. And as always, it's best to go there yourself and learn about it. It's about 3 to 4 bays wide. And my website, as always, has pictures of the modern church, but I've also been able to find pictures of the former church at its former location. So there's a lot to learn about this. Now, incredibly, the one that's there now is only from 1948. So it's only about 75 years old. Although when you see it, you say to yourself, oh, that's older. It's not. But it's well made, and it's a nice little church.
And the church was formerly located on Chapel Street. So can you describe what it was like then?
Okay, it was at 6 Chapel Street, and right next door to it, at 8 Chapel Street, was the rectory for that church. And that rectory was for two pastors. The reason why there was two Lutheran churches within Easthampton, and both pastors lived at the same location. Okay, and it had different names along the way. And that rectory we're talking about still exists at 8 Chapel Street. And it was built in 1910. Now, when the church was on Chapel Street, at 6 Chapel Street, it was taken over by the Lutherans sometime probably in the 19-teens. But before it was the Lutheran Church, it was the chapel of the Payson Church, which is in downtown Easthampton. And it had a name for itself. It was called the Union Chapel. It was a chapel, and it was a mission-style church because it was a couple miles away from the main church. And they would have masses in it every Sunday, just like they would have masses in the Payson Church. So the Payson Church had a Union Chapel. And that Union Chapel was taken over in about 1910 by the Lutheran Church. So quite a history behind it. But it's even more extensive than that. And so keep in mind, this is a very, very vast history. And I have pictures of the church, the parsonage, and a parish hall all in a row because they had 3 buildings going at one time. And I have a close-up of the church, but you can see right beyond it the rectory, and right beyond that is a big hall.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for other inquiries or to sign up for a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, yahoo.com. And its tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, tell us about the
Christ Evangelical Lutheran Church is a church in Easthampton, not at this location, but it's still a Lutheran church. It was at the location where the Mount Tom Schoolhouse was at. That is at 46 East Street in Easthampton, and this was located in the Mount Tom village of Easthampton. It was from 1892 when this Christ Evangelical Lutheran Church came into that schoolhouse and it became a church. And I mentioned before the rectory for this Christ Evangelical Lutheran Church was at 8 Chapel Street, where the rectory for the other Lutheran church was. So they shared it. The Trinity Lutheran Church shared a rectory with this other one, the Christ Evangelical, because they were both Lutheran ministers, and neither of them deserved a full house. It was probably too much money for either of them, but sharing it, they could survive. And of course, one of them had to travel there by either horse and buggy or by car.
And then, why was the Trinity formerly known as the German Evangelical Lutheran Church?
Yes, its former name was that, and if you break it down, it tells you what it's all about. The Lutheran Church, of course, was started by Martin Luther in Germany about 600 years ago, and the Germans were one of many countries that had a Lutheran church inside of it. And, of course, Protestantism spread across Europe, especially Northern Europe. And the German Evangelical is a certain one, it's the evangelical wing of a Lutheran denomination that broke down into many parts, including Calvinism, Evangelicalism, all right? And this is basically the original Lutheran Church, but they call it that name very often within the American Society, German Evangelical Lutheran Church. And it changed its name along their way. When they made a new church, it changed to Trinity Lutheran Church to denote what they believed, and they believed very much into the Trinity of God.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of other podcasts on his website as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. And thank you for tuning in.